but because we're too broken to choose anything else. So, if you've ever been there alone, lonely, desperate for something, anything, to remind you that you still exist, then listen closely. Because the story? It's not just mine. It's yours too. And if it touches something in you, if it echoes even the faintest truth, subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because some stories are too heavy to carry alone. And this? This one nearly crushed me. After the divorce, everything slowed down, but nothing felt still. I moved into a small apartment on the east side. 2 bedrooms. Thin walls. The kind of place where silence doesn't echo, it presses in. It still smelled like my old life. Vanilla candles. Laundry detergent. But not me. Not really. Just traces of the woman I used to be. The living room was cluttered with memories, family portraits we never took down. Frames I didn't have the heart to throw away. A wedding photo still stuck in the back of a drawer, like part of me was afraid to erase proof I was ever chosen. I told myself I was fine. I smiled for the kids, laughed when I had to, nodded through conversations with people who asked how I was doing, already expecting me to say, better. But when the door shut behind my ex for the last time, I realized how empty the house was. How empty I was. He left for someone younger. That part didn't even surprise me. What hurt most was how easy it seemed for him. Like all those years meant nothing. Like I was a chapter he didn't even bother to finish reading. And then there was my son. 19. Too young to carry anyone. But there he was trying to carry me. He split his time between my place and his dad's. But when he was here, he filled the silence. Cooking simple dinners. Fixing the leaky tap. Checking in on me like he was the parent. He never said it out loud, but I could feel it. He was trying to be the man of the house. I should have stopped him. I should have said, "You don't need to protect me." But the truth is, I didn't want him to stop. Because when he was around, the quiet wasn't so loud. The air didn't feel so heavy. I could breathe again. Sometimes, I'd watch him from across the kitchen table, his hands, his eyes. So much of his father in him. But softer, gentler, more present than his dad ever was. And I hated myself for noticing that. But I did. And that noticing, that tiny, invisible shift inside me, it was the beginning of everything that came next. It happened on a Thursday. The kind of day that drags its feet and leaves you feeling scraped thin. The rent was due. The electricity bill sat, unopened on the counter. I'd spent the whole morning pretending everything was under control. But by night, that mask started to crack. I was sitting on the bathroom floor, still in my work clothes. The lights were off. The only glow came from a candle I'd lit hours ago that was now flickering low, like it was struggling to stay alive, just like me. I didn't mean to cry, but sometimes the tears come before the permission. It wasn't loud. No sobs. No gasps. Just quiet shaking. Tears sliding down like they'd done this before. And then, I heard the door creak. I didn't move. Didn't wipe my face. He walked in slowly. My son. No judgment in his eyes. No panic. Just the stillness. Like he saw me, really saw me. For the first time in a long time. He knelt down beside me. Didn't say much. Just sat there, breathing with me. Then gently, he reached over and wiped a tear from my cheek. His hand was warm. Too warm. It lingered, just a second too long. Then he said it. "You don't have to do this alone anymore, Mom." And in that moment, I broke a little more. But not from sadness. From the way his voice wrapped around me like a promise. I wanted to pull away. I didn't. Instead, I let him hold my hand. And when our fingers stayed locked longer than they should have, I noticed. But I didn't let go. After that night, he started doing more. He fixed the broken curtain rod. Started making dinner, nothing fancy, just things he remembered I liked. He ran warm baths when I looked too tired. Left little notes on the fridge. "You got this, Mom." And I told myself this was love. just a son taking care of his mother. But there were moments, small, quiet ones, where something shifted. The way he'd look at me while I stirred my coffee. The way he'd rest his hand on my shoulder, not casually, but gently, like he was holding something fragile. The way he started noticing the color of my lipstick, or how I wore my hair that day. It felt comforting. It felt like someone finally cared. But deep down, in that quiet, buried place I didn't dare speak from, I knew. Comfort shouldn't feel this close to temptation. The nights became easier when he was around. I started looking forward to them, not the way a mother looks forward to time with her son, but the way someone starving looks forward to a meal. It wasn't anything he said. It was just his presence. Steady, gentle, the quiet hum of safety in a world that no longer felt safe. He'd sit across from me on the couch while I sipped tea. Sometimes we'd talk. Other times we just sat. But in those moments, the silence didn't feel hollow. It felt warm, full, and I began to need that warmth. Crave it. Like oxygen. I told myself he was just being kind. That he was growing up to be a good man. That I'd raised him right, empathetic, supportive, tender. But some nights, I'd catch myself watching the way his jaw tensed when he concentrated. The way he pushed his sleeves up when he washed the dishes. And something twisted in me. I hated those thoughts. But I didn't stop them. Not really. I started avoiding mirrors. Couldn't bear to look myself in the eyes. Because deep down I knew. This wasn't grief anymore. It was something else. And then the dreams began. At first, they were hazy. Just shadows and shapes. Me reaching for someone, not knowing who. But then they sharpened. His voice. His hands. His closeness. I'd wake up sweating, breath caught in my throat, heart pounding like I'd done something terrible, even though it was just a dream. Just a dream. But my body didn't know the difference. And neither did the guilt. I started dressing up again. Not for anyone in particular. Just putting effort into how I looked. Lipstick. Earrings. That old blouse I hadn't worn in years. At first, I told myself it was healing. Self-love. Reclaiming my identity. But then I noticed when he noticed. And I waited for it. The slight smile. The comment, "That color looks nice on you." The lingering glance. And suddenly, dressing up wasn't about me anymore. I don't know when the lines started to blur. Maybe they never were clear. But I kept asking myself the same questions. Was I lonely? Or broken? Was I seeing love where I should have seen boundaries? And if I knew it was wrong, why did it still feel like solace? That was the part one couldn't answer. The part that made everything worse. Because it did feel like solace. And that made me more afraid than anything else. It rained that night. Not the soft kind. The kind that rattles the windows and makes the walls feel thinner. The power cut out just after dinner. The TV went black. The hum of appliances disappeared. And suddenly, it was just the storm and us. He lit candles, 3 of them. Placed one on the coffee table, one by the window, and one near me. The room glowed in soft amber light. Flickering shadows danced across the walls, as if they knew something we didn't. He came and sat beside me on the couch. Close, but not too close. Not at first. We talked. Not about chores. Not about groceries or school or work. We talked about life. I told him things I hadn't said out loud in years. How small I felt during my marriage. How I used to count how many days went by without being touched. How I once cried in the shower for 45 minutes because no one would hear me there. And he listened. Not distracted. Not impatient. Just present. His eyes didn't leave mine. And when I paused, voice cracking from things too raw to hold, he reached up and touched my cheek. Not with pity. Not with obligation. It was gentle. Intimate. Too intimate. I froze. Just for a second. My breath caught. But I didn't pull away. His thumb lingered, brushing a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. Then he whispered, "You didn't deserve that. Any of it." My heart beat so loud, I was sure he could hear it. The room felt heavier. The air, too still. And then nothing. No kiss, no move. Just silence. At some point, I leaned my head on his shoulder. And that's where the night faded. I woke up the next morning still on the couch, wrapped in the same blanket. My head still on him, his arms still around me. But something had shifted. Nothing had happened. And yet, everything had changed. He looked at me differently that morning. Like he'd seen something in me I didn't mean to show. And worse, I looked back. And I didn't look away. My birthday came quietly that year. No party. No flowers. No phone calls, not even from the friends I used to call sisters. I told myself it didn't matter. I was too old for birthdays anyway. Just another number. Just another day. But when the sun began to set and the house fell into that slow hush only dusk can bring, I felt it. That ache. That deep, hollow ache of being forgotten. I was in my room folding laundry, still wearing the same clothes from the day before, when I smelled something faint, warm, familiar. Food. I came out slowly, unsure. The living room was dim. Candles again, lined across the table. The good plates I never used. A simple meal. Pasta, salad, a tiny slice of cake on a chip dish. And him, standing there with this nervous little smile. Like a boy showing his mom a finger painting. But he wasn't a boy anymore. He held out a glass of wine. I didn't even think, I took it. And then another. And another. We sat. We ate. We laughed harder than we had in months. Laughed until I forgot I was supposed to be sad. Then he reached for my hand. Not by accident. Not in passing. He held it. Looked at me like I was something beautiful. We danced. To no music. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythm of the rain against the window. I leaned into him. I was drunk, but not from the wine. I was drunk from being seen. From being the center of someone's world, even if only for one night. And then he leaned in close. So close I could feel his breath against my ear. And he whispered, "You deserve to feel loved again." My heart twisted. Before I could stop myself, I kissed his cheek. And then, I don't know what took over me. I turned his face toward mine. And I kissed his lips. Soft, barely there, but real. And for a second, the world stood still. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. We just were. Then I pulled back. Eyes wide, body trembling. And I ran. Straight to my room. Slammed the door. Collapsed onto the floor. And I cried. God, I cried. Because in that one kiss, I shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. Everything I said I'd never do. Every line I swore I'd never cross. Gone. In a heartbeat. The next morning, the light felt different. Not softer. Not warmer. Just colder. Like the sun knew what had happened and wanted nothing to do with us. I stayed in my room longer than usual. Listened for footsteps. For movement. For anything that would tell me how he felt. But the house was still. Too still. When I finally walked out, he was already dressed. Bag packed. Shoes on. He didn't say good morning. Didn't look at me. Just mumbled something about needing to head out for a bit. And then he left. No hug. No eye contact. No trace of the night before. It was like it never happened. Except, it did. He started spending more time away. Came home late. Sometimes not at all. He stopped cooking. Stopped checking in. Stopped leaving those little notes on the fridge. The silence between us wasn't peaceful anymore. It was sharp. Awkward. Dangerous. I tried to act normal, whatever normal meant after that. I asked if he wanted dinner. He said he already ate. I folded his laundry. He thanked me, without looking up. And when our eyes did meet, it was brief. Hollow. Like he didn't recognize me. Or worse, like he did, and couldn't stand what he saw. My younger daughter noticed. Kids always do. She asked me if her brother was mad. I told her he was just busy. But even I didn't believe that. The house felt heavier than ever. Every room filled with unspoken things. Things we didn't dare name. So I clung to the only things I had left: routine. Dishes. Vacuuming at odd hours. Scrolling mindlessly through my phone just to drown out the silence. You think consequences are allowed. That they come with slammed doors or shouting matches. But some don't. Some consequences come wrapped in silence. In distance. In the way two people, once close, suddenly walk around each other like furniture. No blame. No apologies. Just quiet withdrawal. And hearts that won't meet your eyes anymore. I started writing again. Not stories. Not poems. Just pages. Endless pages. Journals filled with half-sentences, crossed-out thoughts, and questions I couldn't answer. It became a ritual. Late at night, after the kids were asleep, when the house was too quiet to pretend anymore, I wrote about everything. The night of the storm. His voice in the dark. The kiss. My silence. His distance. The way the house no longer felt like home, but like a crime scene where no one died, but something sacred was lost. Sometimes I didn't write words. Just scribbled lines across the page like I was trying to scratch something out of me. I thought about my childhood. The way my father left. The way my mother shut down for years after. How I grew up learning that love meant keeping quiet and earning whatever scraps of affection you were offered. Then came the divorce. The final unraveling of a life I had spent years patching together with good intentions and silent suffering. He left. And I didn't stop him. Maybe because I had already left myself long before he did. I started wondering if I had blurred the lines. Or if maybe the lines were already so faint from years of abandonment, neglect, and emotional drought that I just stepped into the only warmth that was left. Was I a victim of loneliness? Or an architect of ruin? That question haunted me. Because when you're the one who crossed the line, it's easier to blame the cracks in your life than to admit you were the one who walked through them. I thought about therapy.